Nerd on the Podcast is proudly partnered with Apogee Electronics and Odyssey Headphones, leaders in the field of audio.
There's no way to
I failed you.
Oh no!
Players comedy.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Nerd on the Podcast you didn't need, but you deserve, and where all levels of nerd are welcome. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And now for something completely different, but it's actually the same. Today, we are proud to discuss the comedy troupe that have influenced comedy for over 50 years.
Some may say revolutionized.
They do say that. And even now gets us through these tough times with the silliness, the absurdity. It's Monty Python R US. I am so excited about that. But before we get into all of this shenanigans, I am Josh.
I'm Ollie.
I am Tom.
I'm Caitlin.
Corey.
And this episode is brought to you in part by the lovely, the immaculate, the sexy people of the Nerd On Nation, powered by Patreon.
Shout out to my grandma, who's a
Sexy and immaculate people of Patreon.
Like Corey's grandma.
If you don't know already, Patreon helps us so much with keeping the lights on, and there's so many wonderful, awesome things you get from being part of the Nerd On Nation. One of my favorite things is having exclusive channels on our Discord and also being part of our Nerd On update episodes where they ask questions. Join today if you want to check that out, nerdon.io/Patreon. But also, if you want to check out our now free and open to everybody Discord, you could still be part of that community with nerdon.io/Discord. But this ad read through wouldn't be complete without mentioning our partners who help us make this sexy, sweet, smooth,
immaculate,
buttery tasting audio without Apogee. And as you could see through our frames, if you're watching on YouTube, you should be. Thank you doing that. These microphones, these hype mics, the ultimate podcasting microphones help us make this show the quality that we are allowed and that Josh doesn't beat us up for.
Yeah.
If we didn't have these, Josh would not allow us to do this. Like, we don't have a podcast if we don't have these hype mics, baby. And I recommend everyone checking them out. And
it tastes your ears like butters.
Yes. And our other partners, Odyssey, for these headphones that we use every recording.
There you go.
God damn it.
Now they smell like butter.
Now it smells like butter on your knees.
What are these, Josh? Open back headphones. Open back headphones are so awesome. They're comfortable. If you have particular settings for how you want your headphones to feel on you, we got you covered because we have someone in our crew too that had to make sure that these headphones felt right for us. Everyone check it out. And then you can see Ollie being like, yes, these are the headphones that I love.
We also have some the Mobius ones, which are really, really good.
Ollie has the Mobius ones.
I do. Not anymore.
I do. These
Josh got it back.
We have to share.
Teleported.
We have to share.
No, that's
You can't
Digital
double headphones.
3D.
yeah. They are
head
7-channel
surround
surround sound headphones. Gaming. They are so incredible.
It'll follow where
That's
you
a couple
turn.
of channels.
That's a
And
couple
it's
of
good
channels.
for horror games.
Yeah, over
Yes.
5.
Anyway.
And that gets all of the housekeeping out of the way. Let's get on with the show.
So,
this is in R US.
Yeah, this is an R US, and so it's more of like a free-flowing conversation, so to speak. I mean, to get a
No
little
ratings.
tiny bit of, Monty Python, known for, as Corey so rudely interrupt. No, I'm just kidding.
100%.
Monty Python revolutionized comedy. Not to say that they weren't inspired by people before them, but they've done some things. Some just shout outs. You've got, of course, Monty Python's Flying Circus. You've got Monty Python's and the Holy Grail. You've got Life of Brian, Meaning of Life, and this whole slew of other shorter stuff and stuff
different.
like that. But
Time Bandits.
But it's not technically considered a Monty Python film.
But they're all in it.
Of course, but it's not considered a Monty. I'm putting a whole bunch of air quotes everywhere.
Yeah.
That no one can see.
That
It's
no one
not,
can
but they're all in it
see.
and it's directed and written by one, but it's not.
Yeah.
But it is.
But yeah.
I throw it in that category.
So
It's like if all the SNL people were in a movie, it's like, it's not a Lonely Island film. It is a Lonely Island.
It is though, isn't it?
yeah, exactly. But yeah, do we want to get into
Yo.
like first impressions or like first experiences?
I
Now-
can tell you right off the bat my first experience. Go ahead, Ollie.
Well, I was gonna say, no. I mean, I'm very curious about your guys' first impressions because, and maybe I'll save mine for the end because, or last because, before getting ready for this episode, I had never consumed any Monty Python.
You are so
Wow.
welcome. My
The
friend.
only thing is like part of the Holy Grail
Okay.
when I was younger.
All right.
Right.
Do you mind if
Wow.
I actually go first a little
Sure.
bit? Sorry.
Hey.
Sorry, Corey.
That's fine.
The only reason I
I
gotta
only
say
love
this.
this just underneath where Josh
Yeah,
is,
you're gonna
but
keep
that's cool.
going below. You're gonna be the last one. So
Yeah, probably so.
I will say this with Monty Python, and Corey knows this to a T, and I think Josh kind of knows it too. Like, comedy is very interesting for me. Like, I am a certain sense of comedy. There's some things
Yeah.
that like I'll go to a thing and I'll watch it, not one laugh out of me, but I'll be like, that's funny, but I don't laugh at it. Where
He's like
Monty,
this the whole time.
it's no,
That was
I'll
funny.
just be like
Bah.
RBF, just resting bitch face all day. I'm like, it's good, it's funny. But like with Monty Python, like I don't watch a lot of SNL. I didn't watch a lot of Mad TV. But Monty Python hits me in a different way,
It
and
hits you in the
in prep
cockles
for all
and
this,
makes you
man.
feel
in-
warm
in
fuzzies.
prep for this, I told them all, I was like, I'm a changed person now. This has changed who I am.
Yes.
Because
Wow.
like there is a level of sketch comedy that I just like I don't care. And then for this, like the absurdist level of it
Yes.
gets me every time.
Well,
It's
they
not the
trailblazed it,
silliness.
too.
It's not what they're setting up. It's just like how it just takes a violent turn and then it becomes the nth level degree of like greatness. And so to answer the question of like how I got introduced to the Pythons for film school, I definitely watched I believe it was A Meaning of Life. And that plays
yeah.
much more to the sketch world, which I didn't realize that. And now for something completely different, their first film was much like that. And then I kind of went backwards a little bit where it was like, and then I went straight into the Flying Circus and I watched the entire series. And then I started watching all the documentary stuff. But like, I got introduced to each member of the Pythons very differently. Like the first thing I saw Eric Idle in, Casper. Like,
Of
yeah.
course.
and then first time I saw
Yeah,
John
makes
Cleese
sense.
was Jungle Book. And so
Yeah.
like it's really weird that like I had these pieces in my childhood and then I'm like, oh, they all came from somewhere. Like humans do. They come from somewhere.
Mhm.
Huh.
And,
people.
yeah. So it's funny because like I've seen the Monty Boosh. Oh, not the
Mighty
Mighty
Boosh?
Boosh. The Mighty Boosh.
The
Monty
Monty Boosh.
The Monty Boosh, the Mighty Boosh, and like I've seen other Adult Swim British comedy stuff. Like I've seen the original Office and stuff like that. But this is to me, I'm like, okay, now I'm kind of seeing a little bit of like where the modernistic like
You know what you would
forms of
love?
it came from.
Faulty Towers.
Yes.
Maybe, who knows? I mean, comedy again is like a swing and a
It's John
swing and a miss with me.
Cleese's show that he
Ooh.
made
Now
after Python.
Tom's like, oh,
After Python? Oh,
yeah,
And,
and,
I mean,
he's the star of it.
okay.
It's him running
It's
a
amazing.
small bed and breakfast. It's
Okay.
fantastic.
oh,
I might have to do that.
Yeah.
Is there spam?
No,
No.
spamity spam.
Spam. Okay, but that's it. That's me. Who's next?
Spam.
Now you may go, Corey.
No, it's fine.
So
Go for it. No, go.
Corey
Caitlin.
should go.
For me, I distinctly remember the day I was introduced to Monty Python. Shout out to my dad, Jolie. I was homesick from school, and he went to Blockbuster. Sorry, Josh. And he rented
It's the better rental place.
he rented Holy Grail and Time Bandits, which is why I think I include it to this day as a Monty Python film.
I get it.
And he told me that when he was growing up, these were a couple of his favorite comedies. And so we sat in that living room when I was sick and watched them back to back until he had to go pick up my sister. And then I put Holy Grail back on when he left. It was such at the time, like nothing I had ever seen. And I'm sure 80% of it went over my head because I was only like, I want to say like 10 or
You're a
11.
child.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, I understood that there was something very unique about this and very, that that intrigued me to just, it's these grown men who weren't afraid to be very silly and have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I really, something hit that spot in me that resonated. And I went on to watch Flying Circus and stuff to the point where, shout out to my buddy Josh Kobia. We were in acting class together.
Josh 1.0.
In our musical theater class, we used to have to do scenes. We had to do famous scenes. And we ended up doing the argument sketch.
Oh my God.
Start to finish, 2 people. And we would switch roles. And it was one of the most fun experiences I've had. I mean, looking back on it, I was like 14, I want to say. And I'm sure I was just doing terrible impressions of Michael Palin and Graham Chapman and all that kind of stuff. But we had so much fun doing it. And I think that's part of the appeal of Monty Python, is that reenacting and saying the lines that they say in the way that they do it is so fun and so fulfilling to do the same voices. Because these guys were brilliant. They were very, like, on a very intelligent level. They were all, college grads from prestigious colleges, and they understood that not only was the writing have to be funny, but how you said something was funny or how you moved was funny. And it wasn't.
Well, there's like a catharsis with it. It's like this. It's like those moments, like, you're in a bank or whatever, and it's supposed to be all super serious. What would happen if, like, a knight came up to you, hit you over the head with a rubber chicken? Like those disruptions of what you expect of the normal.
Oh, 100%.
Is fulfilling and satisfying.
I remember seeing the parrot sketch for the first time, being like 14 or 15, and I mean, to this day, I don't think I'm alone in saying I think it's one of the greatest sketch bits ever written.
Yes.
And that all is attributed to, it's 2 people, but John Cleese's ability to stay so serious in this scene that he's ranting and raving about being sold a dead parrot. And the button is that they've got a slug, or I forget was it a slug by the end of it?
I thought it was a fish.
Or snail or a... No, it was some kind of slimy thing.
And he goes, that'll work.
Not a bird.
And it's just, I can't not love them for everything they've done.
Yeah.
Wow.
Max?
Caitlin?
But that's it.
Caitlin.
So I, kind of the same as Tom, I had seen each individual Python in different things. And then I remember very distinctly getting to watch some of Holy Grail with my parents around. And when it got to the nuns,
The royal spanking.
they turn it off.
Oh.
And I had
Sir Galahad doesn't want to be rescued. I'm fine.
Yes. Yeah. Like, we didn't even get that far because like they were like, no, this is very inappropriate. And I was like, but I want to see, Mom, I want to see what happens. It's not even about that.
It's only a model.
And I remember being intrigued, and I don't think it was till later in life when I had seen bits and pieces of Monty Python more that I was like, oh, they're just not scared to poke fun at anything.
No.
They're like
Even
a really
themselves.
smart British, like, South Park.
Yeah.
Like, but with a lot more awareness of timing. Not to say that South Park doesn't have awareness of timing, but theirs is like
British timing. Just a
Yes.
different. It's a different.
Yeah,
It is a different style of humor.
Different
Yeah.
brand, yeah.
very
Well,
much.
They were like trailblazers. They were pioneers because like a lot of
Oh,
people
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
realize they can talk about the things they were talking about.
Yeah. And they're just they almost make it like an educational show in a way. They include so much history and other languages and music and all of these different variables that you would normally find in like a PBS show in the way that they talk about it. But then they take that absurd turn. It's like, nah, but also we're going to poke fun at it too.
Yeah.
So they're just brilliant. Like they're I've not seen it anywhere else where they can play with the numbering of how things come out. Like, now that I've like entrenched myself in interviews and Flying Circus and Holy Grail and Life of
This makes
Brian,
me so
like,
happy to
I
hear
just
you
want
guys.
so much more.
It makes me happy and disappointed that Josh and I weren't better friends
Yeah.
about
No,
showing
it's-
it to you sooner.
It's true. It's very
No.
true.
Yeah, jerks. No, you're fine.
I mean, there's no
But-
way to
I failed you.
no.
Oh no! Don't do that.
comedy.
No.
But no, they, like there's that like rules of 3 where you set it up, You bring it up again, so it's a game, and then you knock it down. Ah, ha, ha. But like they're so good at playing with that and like spinning it on its head, turning it around, turning it upside down, poking a hole through it, coming back, and you're just like, you're getting whiplash all the time.
Yeah.
Of like not knowing what's coming next, but also knowing what's coming next. Like they found a way to make absurdity familiar, which is so cool. Like, I love the crap
They
out
also, I know I already gave this off camera. What did you call it, Tom? Our digital green room?
Our digital green room.
I said this off. There's a podcast called Off Camera with Sam Jones, and Eric Idle's on there, and he talked about how they were actually split into pairs for writing partners.
Oh, yeah,
I think it was John Cleese and Chapman, or it was John Cleese and Michael Palin, and they would all bring their sketches in to read, and they would read it and be like, I think this is, there wasn't a lot of them telling you like, you need to change this. There was a lot of trust. There was here's how I would do it, give you that information and go. And then Eric Idle being the youngest one, he's like, I usually would make the changes, but his brilliance was songwriting, and no one ever stepped on his feet for that, which was really cool. There's a lot of respect within the group.
It was definitely Cleese, I think, and Chapman.
Okay, yeah.
Because he took care of them a lot.
Yeah, and I know Cleese was like everyone kind of looked at him as a
lot of people
guy.
say he was kind of like the star.
He was
He was the
the leader of it. But I think Cleese would say that Graham kind of was in a sense as well.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I got that impression too.
There was a beautiful marriage between all these different types of comedy too.
Yeah.
Like they all didn't have the same strengths in a good way.
What was it? I think Idol was really good at like trying to mesh things together. So they'd have sketches and they'd have episodes, and they'd be like, we have to follow the comedy. And I think he used this with like with the Holy Grail, and he would rearrange where the sketches would go.
Yeah.
And that was kind of his skill, where like a lot of people
Storyboarding a little bit.
can't wake up with the writings like this sketch should go play after this part, but then they all got seamed together by like Terry Gilliam with his animation. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just it's one of those things that there's never been anything like it since. I mentioned this before, like the closest is Eddie Izzard, who they all refer to as the Lost Python anyway. Which is like, I think that's the cool. I still to this day, like I've known that for years and years. I think it's the coolest thing. And I know he thinks it as well.
Keiko Death.
Keiko Death.
T and Keiko Death.
But there's just so many, like, I can't put my finger on what it is, but I've said this before, like they've made biopics about people who, much like Marilyn Monroe or Fred Rogers and stuff like that, where the story is all there, but you can never really capture what those people had. There's always that element missing to these people who are larger in life. And I think that's kind of the piece de resistance of what all these other sketch comedies are missing, is that they don't have these specific people. And that's, the comedy was there, but these specific people made it work.
It's kind of like
the only way to do a biopic. Oh, sorry. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that it's kind of like they're the perfect, like, if you have a team, a raid team, like they have the perfect, like they've got their,
Yeah, they do.
they've got
so
their, like,
well
they
balanced.
totally
this person
do.
is really good at this,
Six
this,
of them,
this,
yeah.
this, and they're like, we're doing this.
I was going to say I think what you're saying, Corey, is that the perfect biopic would probably be Eddie Izzard playing all of the Pythons in one film. Because that's what they would do, right? They in all the films, they would all just play random characters.
Just
It's amazing.
awoken something,
Yeah.
and Corey just woke up.
I'm in, but but
And call it the final Python.
I saw Eddie Izzard live last year, and he said that he was going to be running for Parliament.
Yeah, he is.
What?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fancy.
I think he talked about it on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Ollie, did you
Oh
come?
my
We
God.
should do
for
an Eddie
me-
Izzard episode, because I got a lot of fun facts about that guy.
I need to see more Eddie Izzard, is what I'm finding out.
Yes, you
I'll
do.
send it to you. There's a
Yes,
documentary.
including the original Office. I still haven't watched through that whole series.
There was a documentary following one of his world tours, and he wanted to challenge himself to do stand-up in 4 different languages. So he learned his routine in Spanish, German, French, and English.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of failure because it doesn't always translate the way you want it to. But he's that's why I think he's up there in that category of Python.
fearlessness
He's just
That's
as
also
smart.
how
And
he
then
could
he's just as
test
brilliant.
jokes. Like,
Yeah.
if it wasn't as funny in another language, then it would make him analyze it in English too. So
Like, why isn't this working?
Interesting.
Anyway, back to Monty Python.
You hear some things like that, and then you're just like, I was proud of myself for doing my laundry yesterday.
Yeah.
I put on
Yeah.
pants
Yes.
today.
I put on
You did a world tour in
pants.
four
That was a
different
big
languages.
deal.
You don't ask people how do they do so much. You ask yourself how do you do so little.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Wally,
that brings
wow.
up a good point. That's actually a perfect segue to my sort of experience. And I mean, you know, Tom isn't wrong when he refers to me as sort of like stuck under the I almost said Destiny, which is also true. Stuck under the Disney rock that I'm trying to pry myself through the Disney rock that I'm trying to get myself past and explore more. And I'm
Actually
so
experience
heartbroken.
better things.
I had a bittersweet experience through this whole thing because I'm really sad that I went through all
I
my
have to say
entire
that it
life
was
not
so
having seen.
heartwarming getting texts from you going,
Oh,
"Oh
God.
my gosh, that one sketch, like this thing, but that it was."
I was so excited. Yeah. Anytime any
like,
y'all.
I was just like a kid in a candy store through after the first like few episodes when I was just like locked in and I was just like in it
Yeah.
and then watching all those sketches and just seeing their like work throughout time and like I haven't seen I could only pick pieces from seasons 3 or series 3 and 4 or whatever. I need to go back and like watch every sketch because I really want to.
Yeah.
And
Do you have
I can't get enough of like their comedy and which is it's interesting because my only context and everybody's gonna like shout at me through the podcast or whatever, but
You're
like
fine.
my only context
Ollie?
for John Cleese is freaking Bond, like James Bond.
Oh.
Like
as
he
Q?
was Q. That was my
Yeah.
only reference for John
that is
Cleese.
him.
So
Yeah.
that gives you some idea of how sort of like, you know, virgin or whatever I was going into this with not only that, but also British comedy. I haven't really seen a ton of like British comedy series.
Really?
Yeah.
But I
Oh my
love
Just
God,
think
some
of American
recommendations.
ones, but it's smarter.
Watch Faulty Towers
the
next.
only thing I can compare it to is
Space, IT
Hitchhiker's
crowd.
Guide to the Galaxy. Like,
Yeah.
which is
Again,
another.
yeah. American
Please.
was smarter.
Faulty
That's
Towers
true.
is right up your alley. Then.
But the
which
experience
also,
of like,
I was
sorry,
gonna
go
say, which is also interesting because I'm assuming you watched some Flying Circus off Netflix, right?
all of it, yeah.
The way Netflix has it,
Like
it's
that, all
not,
of
I
it.
think, in the right
Or
order.
all of what I've watched was on Netflix.
Probably not. Netflix isn't known to do that.
Yeah, it's definitely not in the right order because I was watching
Oh, really?
the documentary of the lawyer's cut, and they're showing like, oh, this is from the movie. I was like, I saw that in Flying Circus. Why the fuck is in the what the fuck?
Oh, I
And
know.
it made me really upset. I'm like, shit, I'm watching it in the wrong way. So
But it's
well,
still
regardless, it was
Yeah.
cool to
that's
watch
the beauty
that.
about sketches, though, is that
And it was my first exposure to people like Eric Idle and Graham Chapman that I still have to like look on my notes to get their names because like I want to feel like I've known them forever already, you know. And
Did you watch
having that going into
Sorry,
the
go ahead.
movies? That was like going into the movies. I was like because I saw like parts of Holy Grail, but then when I went in, I was like the first frame when you see all the people that you're recognizing from the show, it gives you like a whole different level of satisfaction when you're watching these. Like the instant, like when you see them when Life of Brian starts, like
You're
it's like
there they are.
this is gonna be amazing. And then you see them like even in Monty Python and stuff, like, you know, of course they have to play so many different roles and it's kind of fun to see like what they do with each of the different roles and what you're like, which actor is going to be playing this when they pop up? And it's a really cool experience to go through it, having seen Flying Circus. So this is my PSA, if you have a Netflix account and you haven't seen Flying Circus, you're not getting your Netflix money worth.
wow.
As far as I'm concerned at this point. Like,
Didn't know an ad was going to get popped in here, Ollie.
you need to go watch
Josh.
at least like the first season, which I think is my favorite season.
Vindication.
wow, the apocalypse is now.
Wow.
Is there
Aw,
Ollie?
that's
If I may
Yeah.
ask, is there any? You were talking about the different series and sketches that you picked out. Is there any one that stood out to you as a personal favorite or like top 5 sketches that
have
really
some-
stuck with you?
We can talk about
I have
it
a
in the
couple.
future.
But we can.
Yeah.
Can
you
we
want
do
to say
that in
that
a
for a
bit?
second? A segment.
Oh,
Sure, I just wanted one for now.
One is I'll give you the Lumberjack sketch, and that's because I thought it was how ingenious that they just stitched the two sketches together so seamlessly and effortlessly, and like the stitching was funny.
Yeah.
And then like when we get to the like third section of it, it's just like it's brilliant.
Yeah. Dope.
Josh.
I like Corey.
I like
I
Monty
remember
Python.
the moment.
Yeah.
I remember the night. I remember the
Wow.
setting.
There was rose
I remember
petals
who
for
I
the
was.
bedroom.
I remember who I was with.
Candles.
Yes.
I remember who I was.
I remember who I was. I was Josh. I don't remember my age. I just remember that I was at my best friend Josh's house, and
Josh
they,
2.0.
2 Joshes for the price of
Joshception.
one.
yeah,
For the price of fun.
and
Was his name Josh Cobia?
no,
Okay.
and they were like, we're gonna put on this movie, and so my very first experience of Monty Python was Meaning of Life, which is a very
Whoa.
strange welcoming into Monty Python, and
Question: why is that a strange one?
Because it's one of their later ones.
it's one of their later
Okay.
ones, and it's more of just a collection of sketches, and it's
Because I
more
was
of
saying
like,
why? Because that you and I have the same experience, and like that being our first ones. Like, why are we strange now?
it's
No, it's
also
not that it's strange. It's just I'd say a majority of people's entryway into this movie into this group is Holy Grail, just
Yeah.
because it's such a pop culture phenomenon.
Yeah, I knew it
Yeah.
was super popular when.
yeah.
But go ahead, Josh.
But I just remember in that moment and after watching it, like, this sounds kind of hyperbolic, but I felt changed. Like there was something about
Not at
it
all.
that it was the type of humor. It was, and to be perfectly, completely blunt, my life at that time, shout out, there was some stuff in my life, and seeing humor in darkness and having a bright side to things and that kind of thing changed me. And
Oh,
it
for sure.
made, so my sense of humor is very, very much based on Monty Python. It's absurdist sometimes. Like, I would welcome it. Like if we ever did stuff where we ended an episode where somebody going, no more. Like just an abrupt end or stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, a
Subverting
general will come in.
expectations.
Yeah.
Like
No more silliness.
it just, and so that, like, moving on, like for the rest of my life, like there was a time in my life where it's all I watched, it's all I listened to, and it really just, it helped me. Like we did an episode for our Patreon, the Nerd On Nation, where we talked about our comforts, and at one point in my life, that's all I did was when I needed comforting, I watched or listened to Monty Python.
Listening.
Now I can see why.
The final ripoff?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Great CD.
They have a wonderful CD. It's just called Monty Python Sings, and it's more of like a greatest hits almost. And I had that fucker on loop, on repeat on my CD in my car. And
Walkman,
I didn't give
bro.
a shit. I just listened to it over and over again, and it just, I feel like I'm gonna cry. It means so much to me. Like this humor, it
It saved you.
it saved me because the other part about it was they were so fucking smart.
Yeah.
That's what I was a kid that committed a lot to my homework in school, and I also loved theater. And so
Fucking
having these
nerd.
guys that
Yeah.
have these really high educations but are so fucking funny. And then I think that's one, in my opinion, I think that's one of the reasons why they are so funny, because they are so smart that they can look at life and they can be analytical about it and just flip it on its head. And
Yeah. Well, like the sketch where it's the game show and they have the two historic, I think it's like someone like Genghis Khan or something like that, and he just keeps asking him questions about soccer and cricket.
Oh yeah.
And they don't know how to
they have
answer
like
any of
they
them.
have like Hitler and Mussolini and all these other like,
yeah.
despots.
And
Oh,
he's
yes.
like, what was the score
And
of
it's like
last
pop
week's
culture,
cricket?"
like, and what's this? And
Yeah.
like,
Well,
Like, of course they don't know.
Nobody?
Why would they know?
Nobody?
I think
but
it's
I
starting
mean-
to get into unless you have more.
well, I was
Josh.
just gonna like some personal experiences. Like for me, like in acting school, a friend and I did a parrot sketch, which was so much fun because it's a delivery. Like it would not be funny if you didn't go, it's an ex parrot. Like it's just like there's an inflection. There's like, and then I'm trying to get a hold of this. And at the time of this recording, in high school for my senior project, I was in AP English. And once you do the AP exam, it's like wasted time. So the teacher said, you have a project, make a video or do whatever you want to do. And my friends and I, who were also into Python, we
Pythonites?
created this absurdist movie that was called Hectocotylus. Hectocotylus is the reproductive organs of a octopus. Why we called it that, we don't really need to know why.
What other name would you
And it
call
was just a string of sketches that we had
Octocotylus?
written. based on what we had read that year, and trying to get a hold of it. My friend's like, I think I have an RCA to USB adapter.
Wow.
It's on VHS. It's
Was this recorded in the 70s, Josh?
Excuse me, it was 2004, sir.
Yeah, okay. All right.
But yeah.
When you were in like your master degree?
Yes, sir.
One other thing I wanted to point out real quick before we get into more specifics is like, because I have seen things like Mad TV and SNL, but you never. It's hard not to draw those parallels, even though it's like a different style of humor. But it's like I'm thinking about like the fruit sketch in
How to defend yourself
The
from both
self-defense.
from SNL and from Monty Python. Because SNL has something kind of similar, where I think they're folding the fruit or something like that.
Oh,
I
interesting.
don't remember what it is, but like it's
that makes me like physically uncomfortable to think
it just
about.
works better.
Well, I'm glad I asked.
so much.
You're welcome.
It just works better, I feel, in Monty Python because like the absurdist humor I think lands a lot more, and it's interesting. It's interesting to think about like who is influencing who.
I think that brings us to the next piece where we can start sharing favorite pieces of the works, and so the fruit one going into that. Who else wants to go in?
I mean, I can go on forever, so I'd like to hear from someone else
Okay,
first.
I'm gonna jump then. I'm gonna jump.
Go ahead.
The dumb caveman surgery stuff. Where it's like, oh, I have a headache, and then it's like, oh, I have a headache, and they just do that talk and that speak, and then like it cuts to the surgery room. It's like scalpel, mustache, hat, and then immediately when the hat goes on, hey, take over. It's just like, and then all the dumb shit happens. I was like, wow, like, and that's there to me. That's the thing where it's like they, you hear the phrase, you can't, dip your feet back in the same river twice. They do. They totally do. And I'm like, I can't believe they went from there, took it out, brought it back to another place, and then went back. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, that's the thing is they weren't afraid to be intelligent, but they also weren't afraid to go for the low-hanging fruit either.
Yeah.
If they could execute it correctly.
That's the thing where, like, in terms of just the craft of what I really appreciate from them, they were very like, let's talk about the absurdity of like going to, a government branch and having to get a license for something and having to get a fish license. Yeah, and then like how absurd that, and it's like you have to have a cat license and stuff like that. And so like I was like, wow, they're like, again, they're trying to talk about something but using comedy as a form, as a vessel to talk about it. Mm-hmm. It's like it's stupid. And like one thing that struck me really bad was like, I think in that Lawyer Cut documentary series, they were talking about like before they came out, no one could make fun of the Queen or the Prime Minister. After that, everyone felt way more comfortable about talking about those things.
They did.
And I was like, that's cool. I mean, that's the thing where it's like you always will live in fear versus living in knowledge if you're not able to talk about the things that you can talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they also lived in fear that they lived not in fear, but they lived in the ideal that we could get canceled at any time.
Yeah,
so
BBC.
Just go for it.
They were walking on eggshells
around
the whole time, but it was kind of like, fuck it, let's just do it.
I mean, yeah.
I just see that and
go do that. Listen to that interview because it's fantastic.
Yeah, you can see like in their episode titles and just like you can tell they're just having fun and they're just doing it because like it's completely unfiltered and
100%.
Any
other favorite sketches?
My favorite sketch thus far, and I don't think anything has topped it yet, was the Of Mice and Men.
Which one's that one?
Because Monty Python called furries and doxing so far before it was happening.
Wow.
So far before. They knew about the furry parties. I guarantee you they've never been to a fur convention. I can tell you that's accurate. It's real accurate. That just cracked me up. Like they were just being funny and absurd, and then it's like, now that happens.
That's real.
You called it about 40 years early, but
40 years too early.
40 years too early for your time. But the absurdity is like, they do such a good job of like making something seem so, there's like no way this could happen, but also it could, you don't know. And then it did. So that was just like the penultimate of like,
it's like the Simpsons did it first.
Absolutely crazy, but you're not far off track. People
maybe
are crazy.
you ever think about it this way? Maybe they're the reason those things happen.
Sometimes.
Yeah, the Spanish Inquisition did show up.
I was gonna
like
say,
that.
what if they're the reason those things exist because of that sketch? Think about it that way. Maybe they're the catalyst. They didn't
The
predict
inception.
I
that
don't
they
know.
started
I feel
it.
like that's been a thing for
It's like time
a
travel.
hot minute.
Yeah.
It's taking different shapes and everything, but I don't know.
Wow.
I mean, I mentioned the
Mouse in the house parties.
Is that what it was? What is that?
Nothing.
Is that what yours was
Don't worry
called?
about me.
Yeah.
I love the just the fruit sketch is pretty classic. I mean, it's sort of like it does feel like it can be low hanging fruit, but the whole point is that they're smarter than that. So yeah, it features there, but then they subvert that and they take it beyond.
You showed him.
Like, this,
No, I didn't.
they're all perfect in it. Like
Yeah.
they're all equally hilarious. They're arguing about not getting shot, and then of course you pull the lever and release the tiger
Yeah. That's your.
as one would.
There's your Eric Idle bit. A point-head stick.
A point
Head stick. I love that. Like over and over again.
Speaking of getting shot, the one where they're trying to hunt, was it for a mosquito? They're in the
remember
grass,
that one.
and it's like a wannabe, National Geographic. It's like they've come to hunt this one, blah blah blah. It's like a small ant, and they just start unloading firearms on it and actually rocket launcher. I'm like, oh, it's like,
Some
and
people
you know
hunt
what?
that
You know what
way.
that came that ended up becoming Predator, the opening act of Predator, where they're just shooting the jungle for no reason.
Oh.
So that's
Yeah,
I
right.
have a lot of sketches. There's stuff like, I don't know if you've ever seen the one where the two reporters are fighting over the microphone. One's trying to talk about current events. The other ones are arborists trying to talk about trees. And they keep wrestling the microphone away from each other and trying to continue their news segments. That one will get me every time. But my personal favorite, although I think the argument sketch and the parrot sketch for me are like pinnacle defining sketches of that genre, of their brand. There's this sketch about I think it's a dirty fork or a dirty knife.
Yeah.
Oh yes,
Oh,
the
yeah.
diner.
In the diner.
filthy,
ugly
Yeah.
fork.
John Cleese coming out as the chef and having his headache and slamming that knife into the table and like ending on a pun and everyone boos Graham Chapman. Like it's that sketch I found later. I'd say like after high school, and to this day makes me laugh just as hard as when I first saw it. I also love the sketch about the kid who wants to become a coal miner, and his dad says that they're a family of writers, and he has to be a playwright instead. It's
I
just
didn't know.
that small reversal of roles, which is, because it's usually like, I want to be a writer, Dad. We work in the mines with your dad. I thought it was such a smart, so easy, but so smart. Like, why didn't I think
Anybody
of
do
that?
that before?
Those
I
two
think,
for me are like up there.
what's it? And you've seen the lawyer cut of the docuseries, but Terry Jones brings up that fork sketch when they were doing a screening of the Holy Grail, because the Holy Grail wasn't actually well received when it first came out.
Yeah.
And then like he's like, oh man, I gotta think about that fork sketch and how everyone loved it, and like how can we get back to that? And so like, yeah, it's
the fact that, I mean, Holy Grail wasn't well received and almost didn't get made if it weren't for, I think the George Harrison quote, because he funded the movie in the end, was he paid all this amount of money and he didn't care what it was well received. He just wanted to see it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's why he funded the movie, because he loved Monty Python so much. The Beatles loved Monty Python because in their hearts, they
a lot
always,
of rock
besides
bands
music,
did, which was amazing.
well, specifically the
Stones.
Beatles have talked about how a dream of theirs was to do sketch comedy. And there's some things out there that they've done. Like there's they do a 5-minute or 10-minute Shakespeare, and the four of them play all the characters in it.
Wow.
And so they really admired Monty Python for what they did.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Josh.
As I was like, this is one of those episodes that's really hard to prep for, because you
Yeah.
go like, how do I prep for that? Well, I'm just going to watch all
There's
the
a
things.
lot. There's a
And
lot.
again,
to
watch.
consume.
And there's so many sketches, and there were sketches that I forgot about. I mean, like Corey said, I mean, Dead Parrot is always up there. The How to Defend Yourself Against Fresh Fruit was always my
Josh.
like number one.
What about the sketch where the guy wants to go on a safari and the guy can't say the letter C?
Oh, yeah.
And he goes, "Oh, what a silly bunt." And it kills me every single time. He's like, why don't you just say K instead of C?
That reminds me of the one where the newlyweds buy a mattress.
Oh yeah.
And then you can't say
Yes.
mattress, and the guy is like starts like
Has to
prattling
get a
off.
box and start singing. And
And then like the manager comes like, "Did you say mattress?" He said, "Don't do mattress." And he's like, "Okay, cool." And then like after that, there's like, "Oh, he doesn't say what the actual dimensions are. You have to like times it by, or the price of it. You have to times it by 3." It's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
he has to divide it by 2." And it's like,
it's
all
brilliant.
these things.
For me,
the other thing I was with the movie, the thing about the movies too is like, as I was watching through again, I was like, wow, the movies, though they have a nice a narrative, you could watch one scene of any of their movies
of like any of
and
them,
it could be a sketch. And
Yeah.
I just love that.
Easily.
Like one of my favorite things is in Life of Brian, when the two guys that you think that they're deaf and dumb, and they're and then the guy leaves and they're like, so anyway, I was saying, like, you're like, yeah.
For me, it's all about they gave us the aqueduct. Well, yeah, the aqueduct, yes. But what else are they
There
giving
was
us?
a
long list.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
like that's a very
Roads?
current meme right now.
Sanitation?
Yeah.
Besides this, well, they brought peace.
Yeah.
Pace.
Plumbing. One I have to mention. I thought this was like. I think this is like. So it's funny that you guys said like, these are like the penultimate ones. And again, it kind of highlights how I see comedy very differently. One of my favorite ones is Wicker Island, where here on Wicker
Oh, yeah,
Island
yeah, yeah.
is another, and then they would just keep doing that. I was like, yo, and like I think that's a Terry Jones thing because Terry Gilliam was very big on like make the frame. He's the filmy dude. And
He's
like
the director.
I relate to that. But then Terry Jones is like make the camera part of the comedy. I'm like I also relate to that because that's like the
Yeah.
horror dude. And so like everyone just coming in, popping in and out, saying one line. I was like, dude, this is like the blocking's phenomenal. Like, and to me, I absolutely I like love doing the Carl Sagan like billions and billions of years and like just that kind of like underbite, like smart British guy. I was like, oh my god, this is so.
You bring up like the movies are, and even the show, they're polished and they're like really
Yeah.
well made.
Yeah.
Like even like the special
Extremely.
effects
For no budget.
the special
Yeah.
effects in Life of Brian are
Like-
pretty good. They're like, the space
Yeah.
stuff. And
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I'm like, this is kind of funny and I get it, but like I'm enjoying this more than like crappy CG.
Yeah.
Like
They had to be
They
smart
didn't-
about it.
Have
Yeah.
to go so hard on the details, but,
but
they did.
They
They
did
did.
for
Like,
us.
they did for
Holy
us.
Grail. There's a guy whacking the river with a stick. That's like all he's doing.
Yeah.
And then in another scene, there's like a guy stuffing a cow skull full of hay for no reason. And then there's like the cat. You gotta dust the cat in multiple
It's a props
scenes.
on stage.
That's a
Or
normal thing that
they're
we do
dusting
here.
the rugs with a cat.
Mhm.
I just thought they were
With a
dusting the
cat,
cat. I didn't even see the rug.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
the kind
But
of
no,
comedy where everything matters. Like, I liken
Yeah.
it to, well, I liken actually Mel Brooks to Monty Python, but it's like if you watch a Mel Brooks movie, it's not always the
What's in
scene,
frame.
it's what's behind the scene. That is
Yeah.
the funny part too. It
Mise en scène,
adds
baby.
to the comedy. So Monty Python,
This
oftentimes
is
you're
going to be
like,
a left field shout out, but Community does that a lot.
oh yeah,
Oh.
I
There's
still
an
haven't seen
entire
it.
episode where Abed in the background of all these scenes, it's a whole story of he meets this guy and this girl who are assuming his friends in the background, and she's pregnant, and then they're in the background of another scene and she starts going into labor, and in the background of another scene he's like delivering the baby in the back of a car, but it has nothing to do with what's in the front of you.
Nice.
We're
And
seeing a
it-
whole nother story.
I didn't see it till the third time around.
Wow.
So it's I think they tore a page right out of Monty Python's book for that.
But no, like what Corey was saying is like all these pythons come from like education, but like Terry Gilliam coming from like him wanting to do like almost comic books in this magazine, and he would like take pictures and like just write comedy bits inside of it, and then like how it came to fruition with his animation stuff. Like I forget, I think it was Terry Gilliam's personal best. He like animated an opening where he was like, all I want to do is animation. That's all I want. Like, he's doing a bit. And I was like, wow, it's like really cool. And like then hearing how Eric Idle was like, he's got a cool coat, we need to bring him with us. Like there's no credentials at all. It's like, we got to bring
Well,
him
they
with
like, and they went to this all boys school, Eric Idle and a few of them, and so there was like they would like sneak away and go party at night, and it was just this, then they'd come back and be these like really well behaved English kids, and then cut loose. And he's like, and I think that's kind of how Monty Python was. Our work ethic was really like, let's get this shit
On
done. Let's get
point.
it, yeah, and then we would goof off on camera and make sure everyone was laughing.
Wasn't it
But
like Chapman was like the one that was like he loved to kind of like for the good of all chaos and absurdity, like sitting in the middle of the road and like antagonizing his like lacrosse team members, I think, or something like that, like in his younger years. And it's like it plays out in how it was like between the troupe and all that stuff in Monty Python.
I totally would be remiss if I didn't if I didn't mention the Four Yorkshiremen sketch, which is the kids today, they don't understand. We used to wake up at 10 at night, 2 hours before we went to bed. We'd clean like, I don't know if you've seen that sketch, but it's definitely up there as one of my favorites. It's these four guys who are basically talking about how good the kids of today have it, and they're all trying to outdo how hard their lives were. One of them says like, we used to work at the mill 12 hours a day and come home for scraps. And he goes, luxury. And he's like, we used to wake up and go to the mill 24 hours a day, come back, and our father would cut us in half and dance on our graves. And he goes, you try to tell the kids of today that, and they won't believe you. And it's if I implore you, if you have not seen this sketch, go watch that one, because it's for me, it's up there with the parrot sketch and the argument sketch.
One I discovered,
Four Yorkshiremen.
One I discovered on this watch through was it was the bored cat sketch.
Oh yeah, the police
have
and
the
bringing the military.
And he's like, oh, it needs to be confused, and they do this whole crazy like dance sequence where they're, and it was just
setting
like
up on a stage show.
Yeah, it was just but the thing that I thought it was such a little thing, but every time the husband went to speak, the wife would go shh, and she would go on to explain the.
Ollie, looked like you had some.
I was going to mention the Ministry of Silly Walks.
Yes.
It's such a simple concept, but it just like John Cleese's and all of them, like, but just particularly John Cleese is just like, it reminded me of like Jim Carrey stuff. Like it's up there,
Go and watch the live one at the Hollywood Bowl, because the way John Cleese moves his body, obviously in the original sketch was something amazing, but in this live version at the Hollywood Bowl, it was like in the, I want to say 80s, maybe late
Something
70s.
Like
oh,
they have it on Netflix.
God, it is if you haven't watched the live at the Hollywood, watch the whole thing. Because I think a lot of their sketches there are a lot better than their filmed one even. And I think that makes sense, because they all come from a stage background and they have an audience and the energy there.
I think it's been said it's one of the best like film performances.
Yeah, I believe that.
Of any time. Like it's so good that it's.
There's a sketch on there called The Deconstruction of Comedy. I think that's the title of it. Do you know which one I'm talking about, Josh?
Mm-mm.
Where I think it's Graham Chapman is sitting at a podium, and it's got Terry Gilliam, Michael Palin, and Terry Jones in these jumpsuits. And Graham Chapman is giving this lecture on how comedy works, and they're acting out the bits, like slipping on a banana and stuff like that. But these little turns they make within this sketch are from people who clearly understand comedy at such a fundamental level. And they're just flexing in this one. Like it's the Hollywood Bowl version is amazing.
I also recommend anyone to go watch One Down, Five to Go, or Four to Go. But it's after Graham Chapman had passed away, and like they like to your point, Josh, is like the live performances, like they have like giant like dance crews like doing huge numbers. I'm like, wow, the production value of this show is stupid ridiculous. There's one more sketch I have to. I mean, again, we're gonna be kind of like just throwing out sketches all the time. Is the picnic that like someone throws something and then like cuts off someone's hand and then escalates like the piano falling on John Cleese's hands. It just pulls off his hands and like all just blood and gore and mess. I'm like, wow. They went there. They went all there. Everyone died.
Mm-hmm.
There was no chance for peace. Like it was so good.
I have a question for all of you, and it may be
favorite Python.
Yeah, they did it in all of the documentaries.
That's an asshole question.
It's an asshole question, but now I want to ask.
I felt it. What was that, Kaylin?
John Cleese.
John Cleese.
Easy answer for me. He's the epitome of the like the wild card behavior that is their essence. I would
He was their straight man. That was his strength.
Yeah.
You need that.
But he can get
Yeah.
angry, which was really good
Oh, yeah.
too.
Yeah. He was just like
his-
peaks and
his
valleys.
screaming.
So
That's
he
what
was
the straight
great
man
at,
is.
yeah. So he was wonderful.
I'm going to hop on that and say that's the same for me. John Cleese has always been my favorite because he is the straight man. Like when I have often been cast as the straight man that is reacting to the chaos that is
situation.
around him, and that is still funny. I've always really loved watching Cleese in scenes where the other person is just ridiculous. And he is just like, the comedy is him like
Being
just in
kind
it.
of like,
Like, you know.
That's why he's good as Sir Lancelot.
Yeah.
yeah,
Ollie,
blue.
Okay, go ahead.
For me, I think it has to be Eric Idle, just from combination of just how silly and ridiculous he can get, and his singing really does, I think, set him a little bit apart for me. Like a song at the end of Life of Brian. Always got to see the bright side of
Always
life.
look on the bright side of life.
That was probably my favorite part of the movie, I think, actually. was that song at the end. So, Erica.
Nice.
Corey,
No.
I got one. This is going to be out of left field. Caroline Cleveland.
Okay.
What?
What a terrible joke.
How's that? How's a terrible joke?
only line.
Oh, that's
That's
But no. That I mean, to
Was
me,
that in person?
I was super
No,
like
Okay.
kind of really surprised, like, and hearing her story of how like, hey, we're gonna bring you in for a couple sketches and we're gonna peace out. And after she came in, they were like, oh no, she stays. And then she is every female character, sometimes men, sometimes little boys, every time. And like the way that she used sexuality to kind of like enhance her comedy, I was like, it never went too far. It always kind of just felt just right. I'm like, it's so good. It's so freaking good. Like one of my favorite openings is just like, so it always typically starts with it's, and then something happens, and then all of a sudden they'll bring in, and now for something completely different. They do one where it's like hot chicks on the beach, and it's just do a camera pan, and it just like comes through and it tracks through. Like one hot girl. Like it gets to the point where it's absurdly long. I'm like, oh my God. And then finally, John Cleese in a bikini. And now for something, I was like, that's so good. It's like, so yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I can't really say. I feel like to Josh's bullshit of like, well, the side characters are all one character. So the Monty Python is all one character. In my mind, I don't know. Like I can't. They all have like such
they all
good
have,
moments.
like I really identify with Michael Palin because he's the nice one.
Yeah. Michael Palin's really, really good.
Like he's
Fish Called Wanda. He's amazing.
yeah, he's super good. And you have Kevin
His
Kline.
deliveries are pretty genius.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Like also, you brought the Lumberjack one, like when at the very end was like, my dear mama, and then he's just like happy chewing gum.
Yeah.
And everyone's just like, I thought you were so rugged, and just walked away. I was
love him
like,
as
he's just
the
like, what?
Emperor.
Yeah.
Oh my
Because-
God.
Brian.
Dickus.
It's Dwight
Do you know
Gibson
the
too.
story behind that?
Scallion.
Do you know the behind the scenes is that the extras were told that if they laughed, they'd get fired.
Oh,
And so he went off script and started. So all those are genuine, them trying to like stifle their laughter, except for I think the last
It's them
two.
actually getting fired on screen.
wow.
Yeah, well, they didn't. Obviously, they were just told that. I think Cleese told them that or something like
performance.
that. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And so he just went, he like leaned into it. Is it funny to you? Because,
Wow. I have to also bring
You can
up.
tell there was a decision made at some point to continue the bit on screen.
yeah.
I have to bring up the one where is it Terry Jones? Yeah, Terry Jones comes in and John Cleese is like the bookstore clerk. No, it's Eric Idle.
Which
Oh no,
guess?
I can't forget. But
Oh,
it's
is it the
pretty
dental
much
one?
it's pretty much
secret.
the secret code. The secret
Yeah,
code.
yeah.
And it's like the dentist stuff. And then it escalates like, here comes another spy. Here comes another spy.
Oh,
and they have like
yeah.
a pistol and they have like a shotgun. Then they have a bazooka. And then
Yeah.
someone
And then
brings in
the-
like a nuclear missile in the middle of the room. I'm like, wow, they really went
Very
there.
Looney Tunes.
What about the wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more?
Yes,
say no more.
yes. Wait, no, just say no more. Say no more.
one
So
that
you've
I had
done it.
one
with
I
a
had
woman.
completely
She
forgotten.
She likes
is-
pictures, eh?
What's
so
it like?
you dodging answering Tom and Corey? Is that what's happening right now? You're
No,
dodging
Tom answered.
picking your favorite Python?
I said no.
Oh,
He said no. He
That's
just
the,
said
I
okay.
refused.
All right.
That was
just,
my real
just
answer.
wanted to double check.
So yes, Caitlin, you're right. How do you like that? Does it feel good to be right once an episode? Kidding.
yeah.
No, I wasn't dodging. I'm just not doing
answering.
Because I don't.
That's fair.
Like if I'm honestly 100% truthful with you, I don't have a favorite one.
He Tarantino'd the question. He's like, I refuse your hypothesis. So he Tarantino'd that shit.
I don't think you could have any without any of them.
I mean,
So-
there is that
It's hard.
credence where I feel like it's like the third or fourth episode of the lawyer docuseries where Cleese was like, I don't want to do another series. And then they were like, well, we can do it without him. And they tried. And then everyone was like, it's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
it was like, and I think I talked about this in the digital green room, but like the cool thing was like having John Cleese and Terry Jones and Terry Gilliam being like, they're always in a lock. He called it like a horn lock where they would like lock up and like fight and they would have to like argue about things. And then Palin and Chapman would always be the ones that kind of like would weigh the sides.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Cleese left, it was just pure Terry Jones all the time, unfettered, always just like, no, all the decisions were made. And that even played through with the Holy Grail, where like it's directed by both of them, Gilliam and Jones, and they argued like most of all production.
Wow.
And it's like, it's interesting, like how, the decision making does come to like a bit of a committee in that sense. But there are definitely two main decision leaders, and then the rest are like we'll decide based on that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Politics,
Man.
Do we want to say which would be the one piece of Python work that we could suggest to somebody?
Honestly, Flying Circus is a really good entry level point.
Yeah.
But also, if you want to start movies, Holy Grail is
Holy
also
Grail.
very easy
Yeah.
because it's pretty it's pretty middle of the road as far as Flying Circus goes. As far as Monty Python goes, it's the most approachable. I think I said this in text. I think Meaning of Life is a better movie as a whole, as a Monty Python movie.
It's my preferred one.
But I think I have such an attachment to Holy Grail that because of how I was introduced, that's my personal favorite.
No, yeah, I'll attest to that because I watched Holy Grail like way after Meaning of Life, and it did not have the same effect on me that I saw all my peers have. Like a lot of my friends had the "'Tis just but a flesh wound," the Killer Rabbit, all this stuff, and I was just like, I don't get it. And
Because
like,
if that was your stepping stone into it,
That's the thing that I'll say.
yeah,
Is that exactly? I think what you're about to say, where it's like there's a different level of appreciation. I think once you've seen Flying Circus going into
Yeah.
Holy
that's
Grail,
fair.
that
Holy
you
Grail.
lose I think you lose a layer of that comedy almost because you grow to kind of appreciate and know the nuances of the different actors. So when you see them
appreciate
in
the group
those
dynamic.
different roles, you're kind of playing a little game with yourself, like, oh, what do I expect this comedy to be like coming from Eric Idle versus Chapman or whatever?
yeah.
Well,
and I
even-
think
what will it actually be? You know?
yeah,
even
go ahead.
then, like you see them just like escalate to like shooting in the real world, and not like you were saying, like using a fucking giant screen or all that stuff to like emulate that stuff. Like, there's a funny meme where I saw what was like, it was like any DC superhero movie, green screen galore and all that stuff. And then you see Power Rangers like shoot in a goddamn quarry in the middle of
A
fucking
ravine.
nowhere, like a responsible filmmaker. And I was like, I stand for that shit.
I mean, for me, like I said, Holy Grail is it's also such a quotable movie. I think there's so
Oh,
many.
yeah.
I mean, the amount of times that Josh and I have turned to each other and just gone, "It's only a model," is countless. And so I think as far as the movie goes, that's where you should start.
I would agree with that.
Josh?
Meaning of
Copy
life.
paste.
Meaning of life.
Meaning of Life? I mean, yeah. I mean, that,
I
that
think
was
it's
for
an
you,
excellent.
so-
Like, I just think that it's kind of like it's almost like a throw you in the deep end of Monty Python kind of thing, where it's just like fish.
and you weren't expecting it all. At least for me, when I watched Meaning of Life, it was part of my world cinema class. So like I knew I was watching films from different places.
I had no
And so to me,
idea what to expect.
Same.
same, but I was like, okay, cool. I'm watching something foreign, so I'm going to have to play by their rules.
Yeah.
And to me, that was like almost like the crash course of like, this is Monty Python. Get with the program or get the fuck out of the way. And I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, for sure, I got you. And then I
can get
watched the
behind
other
that,
ones.
yeah.
I'm like, all right.
The-
I get it.
The first sketch of that movie is pretty telling. Like one of my favorite jokes of probably all of Monty Python is by Terry Jones in that scene where he's like, "This is what does he say? This is the Son of God, the King of Jews. he's like, it's a Capricorn, is it?
Oh, in Life of Brian, yeah.
Like, no.
Life of
Life of
Brian,
Brian,
like
yeah.
Yeah.
No, like
Every sperm is sacred.
yeah, every sperm is sacred.
Oh my God.
The fish,
they got
like the
that.
fish thing, it's so silly, but like even to this day, when I'm saying morning to somebody, I'll go morning, morning, morning,
Morning.
morning.
Oh.
I'll say, how about this? We'll say this. If you want to deep end this shit, you think you're ready for it, start with Meaning Life. If you want to dip your toe into Monty Python, see if
Flying
it's for you.
Circus.
Holy Grail. I'm talking about just movies.
Oh,
Just movies.
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, again, another remiss spam. Eggs,
Oh,
spam,
yeah.
and bacon,
Spam,
sausage,
spam,
and
spam.
spam.
Them
Hold
like
the- hold the
dropping
spam.
into the scene in the beginning.
I will say this also. Yo, I love spam, y'all. I don't
I
care
don't.
what
That's
anyone
good.
says.
It's really good.
But
Spam
so
is
when
this
from a food
I
truck?
I do know a lot of people that don't like spam. So I'm like, I get it.
Tom
That's
was
totally
there
fine.
for this. Tom was there for this. I don't like spam cubes. I think
Yes.
that's foul. But at my bachelor party, Tasty D Money, shout out
Oh, yeah.
Dustin, cooked the slices of spam
Yes.
on eggs.
Yeah.
And he
Spam
grilled it
eggs.
so it was crunchy on the outside.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm into that. But
Yeah.
the cubes, it's a mouthfeel thing. I can't.
It's
Have
do
you
it.
had the spam musubi before?
Yeah, I was gonna say you got a crispy
It's-
spam musubi.
So good.
It's the shape. It's a mouthfeel.
That's
I can't
fair.
get by it.
That's
My
fair.
my body rejects it.
Um,
That's
Can
all
I-
right.
can I tell one more related like Monty Python story? That's personal.
No.
No,
No, absolutely not.
Yeah,
This is
go
an
ahead.
RS episode, not an RU episode.
Cool.
Please.
No, go ahead. Tell us.
When I was in college, you had to audition for if I wanted to take this dialects class, and you had to come in with dialects already prepared. And that's one thing I will say about Monty Python is that sure, some of them are in a comedic level, but
Like they're
they do
French.
help you break into a dialect.
Yes.
But I was doing this audition for this dialect class, and she was like, well, what kind of dialects can you do? And I was like, well, I can do Monty Python French. And she had me do my entire
I could
audition.
do Brad Pitt Italian.
Yeah. But it's like, I am sorry, I did not know you had the rest is working here.
Yeah.
And that when I do that kind of, if I'm doing that silly French, that's the phrase that I'll use. I am sorry, I did not know you had the rest is working here. And then I had to do my whole audition monologue that is totally not
Oh
in
my
French.
God.
And she was like, do it.
Josh, you just unlocked a sketch I totally forgot about. Obviously, the guy eating too much paper thin mint, the mint, that's famous.
Yeah,
but the
wafer
bit
thin.
after that,
Oh,
where
Gaston?
you follow Eric Idle,
Yeah. Yes.
and
Well,
he
fuck
gets
you.
pissed, he's like, well, fuck you.
I was gonna say that after is like that's probably one of my favorite Monty Python moments. He's leading you down this, and you're almost like, "What the fuck?
Where's this going? Come on.
Where's this going?" And then, well, fuck you. This is
Yeah,
mine.
at the end of it. Yeah.
Get your own.
Brilliant.
And
Cool.
we can round out the episode with this question. It's a little bit more of like a food for thought for our audience. Why do we think the Pythons have permeated through the decades that they
Oh,
have?
I feel like we kind of covered that in the sense that they.
I'm going to round out this episode and not say we have a question.
Well, I mean, I'll.
I think
mean,
it's the same as Shakespeare and why he's lasted so long is a lot of the things they're playing on is just human. It's a relatable, it's about human interactions and subverting them. And I think that the situations that they create are still relatable today. Like if you were to go into a mattress shop, which everyone has a mattress.
I don't.
And
I used
you
to
were,
not.
you know what I'm talking about? Everyone knows what a mattress is.
Yep.
Give me a break here.
Yes.
So that's relatable. Suddenly having these guys say, oh, well, everything he says is times 3. Oh, everything he says is divided by 2. It's all these things that just as humans, we're going like, that's hilarious. That's great.
But also
it seems
on-
absurd, but it's just barely less absurd than real life, and that like you get to say and do the things that you would wish you could in real
Well,
life.
they don't really wink at the camera.
Yeah.
They commit to those characters. They're not like,
Yeah.
I'm being silly now. It's this is really happening
It's like
in this
if this
moment.
was really
Yeah, I mean,
happening.
and that's kind of like the point of what I think improv is like, where it's like you find comedy and almost truth of like within the characters of the rules that they're playing within.
Yeah.
Like, what do the people do of the like funny Spanish Inquisition. They throw an old lady onto a very comfortable couch, and like, what do they find inside of that constraint?
But
Yeah.
also, I think that what's important about it is that just to not take life too seriously. Like sometimes, I mean, I know that like it's a nod and a wink. The always look on the
Wink,
bright
nudge,
side
nudge,
of
say
life.
no.
Like it's kind of, I think, in a way, a bed of everything. It's like, it really is like, just don't take life too seriously. There's funny everywhere. And
Everywhere.
I will say it definitely does manage to balance like what Caitlin said, like it's trying to talk about some things that you may not know of, but also bring to light some things that it could possibly be. In a way where it's like you don't feel like it's trying to teach you too hard, and you don't feel like they're trying to just like make you laugh for no reason. Like it's masterfully done. Fucking A, why don't they have a goddamn masterclass? I'm saying fucking stupid masterclasses left and right. They should have a fucking masterclass.
Just because their work is a masterclass.
Like what kind of gets me that was surprising for me about watching more and more Monty Python is I went to college for studio art. So I had to study a lot of, I studied a couple different languages. I studied a lot of classical literature and art history. And the more Monty Python I watch, the more I want to revisit those languages and revisit my art history. Like the way that they play with things that you already know about, but you don't know the specifics of. The way that they just play with subtlety is...
Oh, yeah. There's an
like
entire
surgeon
sketch they wrote.
precise.
There's an entire sketch they wrote where it's all about the painting of the Last Supper.
Oh yeah.
And Eric Idle is the artist, and I think Cleese is the cardinal. And it's just like it's based in a lot of it's based in history, and they don't care if you don't understand that reference because they do, and they think it's funny.
No, yeah. I mean that's the thing.
They've really done their homework on everything. Yeah. And getting to understand the rules and then play with them is what they're just experts at.
And then just throw the rules on the ground.
Yeah.
And
then
stomp them.
Set it on fire.
And then put them in a dumpster fire. And
then everything explodes.
Yeah.
I did have an epiphany during this episode though, when Corey was explaining about the mattresses and why I think it's kind of defined why comedy is not always in my dialect. I fucking know but all the time. I don't yes and anything. I always know but all the time.
That's because everything's an argument.
Everything is always
the way that was said, Corey.
It's
like,
a
yeah, I know.
It's an outside conversation that I think Corey has had with Tom. I've had with
green
Tom.
screen. We'll have more in the green screen to discuss.
Anyway,
well, yeah, I think does
We
everyone
need to
feel
stop
complete?
this is getting way too silly.
Yes.
we're done. Nope, done. No more.
Sorry, your call cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the number and dial again, or call your operator to help you.